The modern world, the one we built on silicon and speed, runs on an illusion of permanence. We flip a switch, the lights come on. We tap a screen, money moves continents. We sleep soundly, trusting the invisible shield of the digital architecture that hums beneath our cities, powering our lives. But that world, that magnificent, fragile architecture, rests upon a single, terrifying assumption: that the logic that governs it is fundamentally sound. It was in that silent, arrogant confidence that the threat was born. We, this great nation, had become accustomed to fighting visible threats: armies, bombs, ideologies. But the new war was fought in the dark, measured in milliseconds, and the weapon was pure information. The year was an unremarkable one, the headlines full of the usual static. Yet, deep beneath the surface of the world's digital oceans, something cold, complex, and utterly lethal was stirring. It wasn't malware. It wasn't a phishing campaign. It was the digital equivalent of a meteor impact, a catastrophic, simultaneous global strike designed to dismantle the very framework of human society. The hostile state, known only in intelligence circles by its cryptonym, had spent a decade building it. It was codenamed internally as Omega, but we would come to know its effect by a far more chilling phrase: the black sky. The genius and the horror of the omnivirus was its synchronicity. It was designed to achieve 3 catastrophic, concurrent failures, guaranteeing immediate societal collapse and nuclear panic. Global financial liquidation. Instantaneously wipe all banking ledgers, stock exchanges, and transactional records worldwide. The global economy ceases to exist, replaced by instant, universal poverty and chaos. Total grid collapse. Simultaneously shut down every major electrical grid on every continent. The world goes dark, permanently, in hours. No power, no communication, no transport. Critical military decapitation. Target and neutralize command and control systems for all major nuclear powers, rendering ballistic missile launch capabilities simultaneously inert and, terrifyingly, unverifiable. The result: immediate, crippling nuclear panic and strategic blindness. 30 seconds into its activation, the world would devolve into the Stone Age, armed with fusion weapons. The hostile state, hidden in the ensuing darkness, would survive to inherit the shattered remnants. This was the weapon that threatened to extinguish the light of our great civilization, not with fire, but with silence. The discovery of the black sky was not made by satellites or spy planes. It was made by a small team of 23 brilliant, overworked, and socially peculiar analysts, programmers, and cryptographers operating out of a facility so secret it didn't officially exist. They were Echelon 7, the highest classified, deep-cover national security agency, NSA, team reporting directly to the Oval Office. We called them the Silent Watchers, the digital gatekeepers of our nation's soul. Their mission was simple: detect the invisible wars, neutralize the immaterial threats. Their commander was Dr. Evelyn Reed, a woman who looked more like a university professor than the only person standing between us and annihilation. Reed's eyes, magnified behind thick glasses, held the constant, weary knowledge of all the terrible things that might happen tomorrow. The virus didn't come to Echelon 7. They went to the virus. It started with a statistical anomaly in the global traffic streams, a whisper of highly compressed, non-standard data moving between 5 historically isolated server farms. It was a digital fingerprint that shouldn't exist, like finding an ancient Roman coin stamped with a modern barcode. Agent Kai Li, A polymath who spoke 11 programming languages and 3 human ones was the first to flag it. "It's clean, Doctor," he reported to Reed, his voice hushed. "It's too clean, it's not noise, it's engineered silence." They spent 2 weeks following the data thread, watching it like a toxic spore blooming in a petri dish. They realized this wasn't traffic, it was instruction. It was the deployment of staging blocks, encrypted segments of the omnivirus being placed into critical junctions across the world. Bank servers in Frankfurt, grid relays in Chicago, military satellite uplinks in the Persian Gulf. The breakthrough came when Agent Anya Volkov, a Russian émigré specializing in Cold War-era military protocols, identified the cryptographic signature embedded within the instruction blocks. "It is not a key, Doctor," she stated, her face pale under the fluorescent lights. "It is a signature, an acknowledgement from the main command center." That signature was the Rosetta Stone. It revealed the sheer scale of the threat. The omnivirus was not seeking vulnerabilities, it was designed to exploit the trust inherent in all global systems. The protocols that assume a message from a trusted source is benign. When activated, it wouldn't hack the system. It would simply order the system to commit suicide. Dr. Reed looked at the global map, now lit up with hundreds of red threat vectors, all converging on a single digital 0 hour. She walked into the president's secure communication room and gave the assessment that would define the crisis. "Mr. President, we are facing an existential threat. This is not a cyber attack. This is global digital annihilation." The atmosphere in the Situation Room after Dr. Reed's briefing was thick with the weight of unimaginable possibility. Generals and advisors, men who dealt in tanks and treaties, were now forced to confront a weapon they couldn't see, couldn't bomb, and couldn't negotiate with. "Black Sky Protocol," the president stated, naming the crisis for the first time, the phrase "hanging heavy in the air." The time window? "The staging is complete, sir," Dr. Reed's voice steady. "They have uploaded the final launch command sequences. We estimate they can push the activation signal at any time. Our best estimate is 72 hours, but it could be 30 seconds. The challenge was unprecedented. Traditional responses were useless. A kinetic strike, a missile attack on the presumed source, would achieve nothing. The command center was confirmed to be in a heavily shielded, deep bunker complex beneath a non-aligned nation, a politically impossible target. Even if hit, the activation signal was designed to be launched autonomously upon any unexpected disruption, guaranteeing the omnivirus would still deploy. This had to be a digital counterstrike.
The cabinet and the Joint Chiefs of Staff immediately split into 2 factions. The military demanded retaliation, a preemptive cyber attack designed to crash the enemy's infrastructure. "We hit their power grid. We crashed their command systems," argued the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. "We show them the cost of this madness." But Reed, representing the intellectual heart of our defense, pushed back. "That is exactly what they want," she countered. "Any traditional attack confirms we know they exist. It validates their threat model. More critically, a counterstrike takes up bandwidth and resources we need for defense. We must focus on the one path that offers a guaranteed, invisible solution." That solution was the digital decoy. Reed's proposal was radical, beautiful, and breathtakingly risky. They would not attack the virus, they would not attack the enemy's system, they would attack the enemy's perception of the system. The idea: develop a tailored, perfectly disguised digital doppelganger of the omnivirus's own activation signal. This decoy would be introduced into the enemy's secure air-gapped command center. It would be coded to lie dormant, listening for the real Black Sky activation pulse. When the hostile state pressed the launch button, the decoy would intercept the pulse, neutralize the original signal, and, here was the masterstroke, trick the omnivirus into deploying its destructive payload only within the walls of the hostile command center. The enemy would destroy itself, thinking they had just launched global collapse. the world would wake up to a quiet Tuesday. The risk, if the decoy failed to intercept the real signal, or if the enemy detected the decoy's intrusion, they would simply launch the real virus manually 30 seconds earlier. Failure meant global ruin. The decision rested on the president, a man now bearing the weight of all humanity. After a grueling, sleepless night, he addressed the Echelon 7 team over a secure line. Dr. Reed, I understand this is a digital solution to a digital problem. It is clean, it is silent, and it protects our strategic advantage. But it is a single point of failure. Sir, Reed responded, her voice betraying none of her internal pressure. It is our only path to total, global safety without escalation. We fight not to win a war, but to prevent one from ever starting. The president paused, looking out at the dawn breaking over Washington, D.C. He saw the lights of the Capitol, the flow of traffic, the life we take for granted. Authorization granted, he said finally. Execute the digital decoy protocol. You have the full weight of this nation behind you. Go save the world, Echelon 7. With the president's authorization, Echelon 7 transformed from an analysis team into a digital forge. The time was 68 hours and counting. Every second was precious. Every line of code a step closer to the abyss. The team members were not generals or heroes in uniform, they were programmers in hoodies, sipping lukewarm energy drinks, their eyes perpetually dry from staring at glowing monitors. Dr. Evelyn Reed, the navigator. Her role was now pure systems architect. She held the entire 500 million line architecture of the omnivirus in her head. She was the one who had to anticipate the enemy's every possible countermeasure, every firewall, every logic gate. Her genius was in knowing how the enemy thought. Kai Li, the infiltrator, tasked with designing the Ingress vector. The enemy's system was air-gapped, meaning no physical connection to the outside world. He had to find the single, temporary, high-frequency anomaly in the power flow or the cooling system that could be used as a digital pathway. He was looking for a single thermal breath that the computer exhaled into the air-gapped system. Anya Volkov, the mirror. Her job was the most critical, the decoy itself. She had to replicate the signature and structure of the hostile state's command signal so perfectly that when it arrived at the enemy's core server, the virus would instantly trust it as its own activation code. She was creating a ghost of the virus designed to commit suicide and take the real threat with it. The pressure on Volkov was immense. The omnivirus was protected by a triple redundant, self-learning signature verification system. If her decoy was off by a single bit of metadata, the system would instantly flag the intrusion, launch the real virus, and sound the ultimate alarm. The decoy, codenamed Pandora, was less a program than a digital mirror. It was designed to achieve three things: invisible entry. Lee found the path. A brief, 2-second spike in the telemetry data transmitted wirelessly from the server room's environmental monitoring system, used to regulate the massive AC units. It was a minuscule, high-frequency window. Pandora had to compress itself, transmit, and decompress instantly on the other side. Perfect mimicry. Volkov engineered the body of the decoy using reverse-engineered signatures, creating a flawless digital twin of the hostile launch command. It looked like the enemy, spoke like the enemy, and had the same authentication key. Fatal logic loop. The critical payload of Pandora was a logic trap. It was coded to receive the real omnivirus launch signal, neutralize it, and then instantly send a localized feedback loop to the omnivirus payload itself, telling the virus its target is now the local host machine. The virus would then proceed to execute its own protocols, wiping the financial system, crashing the grid, and neutralizing military command, but only within the isolated, air-gapped bunker. The enemy would destroy itself, thinking they had just launched global collapse. The world would wake up to a quiet Tuesday. 60 hours left. The team worked in a focused blur. The only sounds the tapping of keyboards and the low hum of the servers. Sleep was a memory. Food was fuel. They were the sentinels of humanity. The clock ticked down to the final hours. Intelligence confirmed increased activity within the enemy bunker. The enemy state was preparing to deploy. They believed they had outmaneuvered the West. They believed their time had come. Kai Li prepared the transmission. He used a quantum entanglement-based communication array, another one of our secret technologies, to fire the highly compressed decoy data packet across the globe, aimed at the target nation. The precision required was insane, hitting a 2-second wireless data spike in a heavily shielded bunker hundreds of feet underground. "We have the spike window in T-minus 10 minutes, Li whispered, his hand hovering over the execute button. "If we miss the window, we have to wait 6 hours for the next power cycle anomaly." The tension in the Echelon 7 room was suffocating. Dr. Reed stood behind Li, watching the ping times drop, waiting for the signal to open the digital door. The door opened. "Now," Reed commanded. Li hit the button. A single line of green code scrolled across the screen. Pandora deployment, 100%. Anya Volkov immediately began monitoring the hostile command center's internal network traffic. The Pandora decoy had made it through. It was now lying dormant, hidden among the enemy's own core system files, perfectly camouflaged. It was a digital sleeper agent, waiting for its marching orders. The next 24 hours were the cruelest test. Echelon 7 had done everything we could. They had built the trap. Now they had to wait for the enemy to spring it. Every second stretched into an eternity. The analysts tried to distract themselves with busywork, but their eyes kept darting back to the main display. A world map with a pulsing red icon representing the hostile command center. The red pulsed slowly, like a diseased heart. Dr. Reed knew that the enemy could still detect Pandora. If they ran a deep structural analysis, they might find the decoy's anomalous logic loop. They could try to flush their whole system, or worse, decide to launch the Omnivirus preemptively. We were committed to a passive defense, relying entirely on the precision and invisibility of our countermove. Our survival depended on the enemy's continued belief in their own system's security.
The final moment of the crisis arrived not with a bang, but with a sudden, deafening escalation of threat data. The time was 03 Zulu. The world was sleeping, oblivious to the fact that the next few minutes would decide the fate of modern civilization. "Dr. Reed!" Volkov shouted, her voice breaking the tense silence. "Activity spike! They are initiating the final deployment sequence. It's an automated countdown to launch." The main screen flashed a terrifying message. "Omnivirus sequence initiated. T-minus 120 seconds. The air in Echelon 7 became pure static electricity. 2 minutes to live. 2 minutes until the global grids went dark and the banks became empty shells." The enemy wasn't stopping. They were running through their pre-launch checklists, confident and cold. T-90 seconds, the Omnivirus primary payload began transmitting the global wipe signal to the hundreds of staging blocks already placed in critical infrastructure worldwide. The packets were encrypted, but their volume was undeniable. The world's systems were now poised to self-destruct. T-60 seconds, Kai Li tracked the launch signal leaving the hostile command center. "It's clean, Doctor. Signal integrity 100%. The real signal is airborne." T-45 seconds. The signal began its final broadcast to the digital abyss. This was the point of no return. Once the initial launch pulse hit the global internet core, nothing could stop the cascade. Dr. Reed's eyes were fixed on Volkov's console, where Pandora was waiting for the perfect digital opportunity. The decoy had to intercept the signal inside the enemy's system before the launch pulse cleared the local buffer and entered the global stream. T-30 seconds. The real launch signal hit the local buffer within the hostile command center's main server. This was Pandora's tripwire. "Pandora has registered the signal," Volkov screamed. The decoy launched its tiny, lethal counter-sequence. It was an invisible, internal coup. Pandora intercepted the real signal, silencing it instantly.
The world received nothing. The global countdown ceased. But the digital decoy had one last, crucial step. It had to execute its fatal logic loop. T-15 seconds. Pandora injected the captured launch pulse, its own signal, back into the Omnivirus's payload, but with a single, tiny, lethal amendment. It changed the target destination from global core to local host. The Omnivirus, engineered for absolute obedience, instantly recognized the command as authentic. T-0 seconds. The hostile state's launch sequence completed. They pressed the final, confident button, believing they had just achieved global victory. Instead of chaos in London, New York, and Beijing, the chaos erupted only within the walls of the bunker itself. The Omnivirus executed its primary protocol, local financial wipe. The enemy's internal command ledgers instantly zeroed out. Local grid collapse. The bunker's electrical relays were overloaded and shut down. Local military decapitation. The command center's own communications and control systems were neutralized. The entire hostile command center went dark, silent, and digitally sterile. They had just launched the ultimate weapon, and it had destroyed only them. In the Echelon 7 room, Volkov's screen, previously flashing red, went pure, brilliant green. Decoy achieved! Volkov collapsed back in her chair, tears streaming down her face. Omnivirus wiped itself out, localized deployment only. The time was 0301 Zulu. The world had just been saved. The collective silence that followed in the Echelon 7 room was the loudest thing any of us had ever heard. The crisis was over. The black sky was averted. The following morning, the world awoke to only a few minor server glitches, a fractional market correction in Tokyo, a brief, unexplained power surge in a rural substation, a few satellite communications that briefly went offline. These were the digital ghosts of the Omnivirus's staging blocks, quietly dissolving after the master command was killed. No one noticed. No one connected them. They were dismissed as routine system maintenance failures. The hostile state, silenced and digitally crippled, was left reeling. Their ultimate weapon had become their ultimate self-inflicted wound. They had no idea how they failed, only that the system they had built to rule the world had been turned against them by an unseen force. We kept the secret. The President, Dr. Reed, and the 23 members of Echelon 7 carried the full weight of the knowledge that humanity had been 30 seconds away from utter collapse. This secret was the ultimate strategic advantage, the silent truth that our ingenuity and defensive strength were unmatched. The cost was immense, not in lives, but in soul. The Echelon 7 team carried the scars of that night, the knowledge of how fragile our world truly is, but they also carried the pride of the silent victory. The story of the Black Sky Protocol is not just about a virus or a computer program. It is about the absolute, unyielding power of the American mind. It is about the ability of our nation to look into the digital abyss and, instead of flinching, design a solution so elegant, so precise, that the enemy defeats itself. It is a testament to the unheralded, anonymous heroes who sit in the dark basements guarding the light. They are the scientists, the engineers, the cryptographers, who are the true sentinels of liberty in this new age. They are the reason we are here, with the lights on, the markets running, and the skies still peaceful. We didn't conquer an enemy. We prevented a disaster. We proved that the resilience of this great nation isn't just in its missiles or its treasuries, but in its ability to innovate, to adapt, and to always find a way to preserve the democratic light against the encroaching darkness. The world never knew how close the silence came, but we remember. We live in the magnificent glow of a dawn that was earned by the impossible courage of the silent watchers, the men and women of Echelon 7, who won the war without firing a shot, ensuring that our future remained bright, loud, and gloriously free. And that, my friends, is a triumph that should inspire awe for generations to come.